You're not single by accident. God is preparing you for purpose, not just partnership. This season isn't a delay, it's divine design. He's building strength, clarity, and calling in you. Don't waste it wishing it away. What's coming is bigger than you think, and so is the reason you're here. Singleness is not a mistake, it's not a punishment, a delay, or some forgotten season in the timeline of your life. It's a mission, strategic, sacred, and fully intentional. When God allows you to walk through singleness, He's not putting your life on hold. He's giving you a front row seat to discover who you are without distraction, without compromise, and without the noise of someone else's expectations. This is the space where clarity is cultivated, where vision is sharpened, and where your identity is not defined by another person, but by the one who created you. So many people rush through singleness like it's a storm to survive, not realizing that it's actually a classroom where God teaches you how to stand alone so you don't collapse when you stand beside someone else. If you don't know who you are before the relationship, you'll lose yourself in it. That's why this season is so valuable. God isn't withholding anything from you. He's depositing something in you. There are things God can only do in you when you're not tied to someone else's timeline, opinions, or emotional roller coaster. In this space, you learn to hear His voice without filter. You learn obedience without needing approval. You learn joy without conditions. That's not a delay, that's development. What if singleness isn't something you're waiting to escape, but something you're called to embrace? What if your impact in this season is just as powerful, if not more, than in a future relationship? Jesus was single, Paul was single, and both lived lives of radical obedience, deep intimacy with the Father, and world-changing mission. Not despite their singleness, but through it. There's a unique freedom in this space. You can move quickly when God says go. You can pivot without needing to process someone else's comfort zone. You can serve, lead, build, create, and heal without the pull of divided devotion. That freedom isn't something to mourn, it's something to steward. And yes, it gets hard. Yes, loneliness is real, but don't confuse loneliness with lack. You're not lacking value, purpose, or future. You're gaining depth, self-awareness, and a groundedness that many people never experience before they attach themselves to someone else. That depth will not only serve your future relationships, it will serve your purpose long after the romance fades. You are on a mission right now. Not once someone enters your life, not once the ring slides on your finger, not once you get to post the highlight reel. Right now, in the quiet, in the stretching, in the unseen obedience, God is moving through your story, through your strength, through your surrender. Preparation always comes before promotion. That's not just a biblical principle, it's a spiritual reality. God doesn't elevate what isn't ready. Before He puts you in the spotlight, He shapes you in the shadows. And if you're in a season of waiting, wondering why the doors aren't opening, maybe it's because God is still preparing the foundation. Promotion without preparation becomes pressure. But when you let God build you privately, He can trust you publicly. You don't see what's happening underground, but that doesn't mean nothing's happening. Roots grow before fruit shows. And God is more interested in who you're becoming than where you're going. Because if He promotes the version of you that hasn't been processed, the very thing you prayed for might crush you. He's not just preparing the opportunity, He's preparing you to carry it. Think about David. Before he wore a crown, he held a slingshot. Before the palace, there were sheep. He wasn't invited to the lineup, yet he was still anointed. Why? Because preparation was happening where no one was watching. God was forming a warrior in the wilderness. And when Goliath showed up, David didn't panic. He was prepared, not because of the armor he wore, but because of the battles he fought in secret. God promotes those who are faithful when no one's clapping. Preparation isn't always glamorous. It feels hidden, hard, and repetitive, but it's sacred. Every unnoticed prayer, every unseen act of obedience, every quiet decision to show up when it would be easier to give up, it matters. That's where spiritual muscles are built. That's where identity is anchored. That's where character is refined. Promotion will test your character. If you skip preparation, you won't have the strength to withstand it. You can ask God for the platform, but He's more concerned with your posture. Are you humble? Are you teachable? Can you celebrate others when it's not your turn? Can you honor people even when you feel overlooked? These are the questions that determine readiness, because promotion isn't about popularity. It's about responsibility. God doesn't elevate to inflate egos. He promotes to fulfill purpose. And if your heart's not aligned, the platform becomes a distraction instead of a destiny. Sometimes we try to force doors open, rush timing, or copy someone else's journey. But when God is preparing you, comparison becomes the enemy of development. What He's building in you is unique. The slow process doesn't mean He forgot you. It means He's forming something that will last. Fast fruit spoils quickly, but fruit grown in the right season with deep roots can survive storms. You might not see the promotion yet, but trust that it's coming. And when it does, it won't be random. It'll be right. Not because you hustled your way into it, but because God prepared you for it. Every step, every delay, every closed door, it all played a part in making sure that when you finally walk into the room, you'll be ready. You're not waiting on a person. You're waiting on purpose. It might feel like you're in a holding pattern, like life is paused until someone enters the picture, but that's not the truth. God's timing isn't about delivering people on schedule. It's about aligning your life with the purpose He's already written for you. When you think you're just waiting for a relationship, you can miss what God is doing right now in you, through you, and for you. He's not stalling your story. He's shaping it with purpose that's bigger than a relationship status. The danger of believing you're just waiting on a person is that your focus shifts from mission to marriage, from calling to companionship, and that's not what you were created for. You were created to move, build, grow, and impact. Not in the future, not when someone finally shows up, but right now. If God hasn't introduced the person yet, it's not because He's late, it's because there's still purpose in this current season. And if you neglect that, you'll walk into your next chapter unprepared for what it requires. Purpose isn't passive. It's active, intentional, and often uncomfortable. It demands surrender, discipline, and courage. When you lean into it, you discover that you were never meant to wait idly for someone else to complete your story. You were meant to walk fully in what God has already written for you. The right person isn't the beginning of your purpose. They're a part of it, but not the point of it. Your purpose was alive long before anyone showed up, and it will still be burning long after they do. Sometimes God will delay the relationship to deepen the revelation. He'll withhold what you want to reveal what you need. And what you need is alignment with His purpose, not just someone to fill the void. When your focus shifts from people to purpose, your life starts to look different. You serve with passion, you grow in confidence, and you stop waiting for someone to validate what God already confirmed. This is the season to invest, not pause, to plant, not pine, to move, not mope. God hasn't stopped working just because someone hasn't arrived. In fact, this might be the most strategic season of your life. He's shaping your character, teaching you to depend on Him, and calling you to build something that matters, so that when the right person does enter the scene, you're not waiting to start living. You're already running, and they're just joining you on the journey. Purpose attracts what's meant for you. You don't have to chase. You don't have to perform. You just have to be faithful where you are, because the truth is you're not waiting on someone to complete your life. You're walking toward the reason you were created. And when your purpose and God's timing collide, everything will make sense. Until then, don't stop moving. You're not waiting on a person. You're waiting on purpose. Isolation is God's way of elevation. It doesn't feel like it at first. When you're in it, it feels more like rejection, abandonment, or punishment. People fall away, connections dissolve, and you're left wondering if something went wrong. But what looks like isolation on the surface is often divine strategy. God will remove you from certain circles, situations, and voices, not to harm you, but to prepare you. Before He brings you up, He often sets you apart. Throughout Scripture, isolation precedes impact. Moses was hidden in the desert before leading a nation. Joseph was confined in a prison before standing in a palace. Jesus withdrew into the wilderness before stepping into ministry. These aren't just stories, they're blueprints. When God has a plan to elevate your life, He often starts by removing distractions. He pulls you away from what's comfortable to reveal what's crucial. In isolation, you can finally hear clearly. The noise of public opinion fades, the pressure to perform disappears, and what remains is the voice of God calling you deeper. Isolation strips away the unnecessary so that the essential can surface. When the crowds are gone and the applause stops, you begin to face your real self. The parts of you that need healing, the fears you've been masking, the insecurities that relationships covered. Isolation becomes the mirror God uses to show you who you truly are, not to shame you, but to shape you. It's in those quiet places that your identity is refined, your character is tested, and your faith is stretched. Most people resist isolation because it feels like inactivity. But God does His best work in hidden places. Seeds grow in darkness. Foundations are built underground. An elevation that lasts is always rooted in what no one sees. You don't need a platform to grow, just obedience. And sometimes obedience means staying in the wilderness until God says it's time to come out. This process is not about isolation for the sake of loneliness. It's isolation for the sake of preparation. God separates you so He can speak to you. He quiets the room so you can recognize His whisper. He removes people so your dependency is fully on Him. And when He's finished forming you in the quiet, He'll bring you back into the light, not just elevated, but equipped. You might feel forgotten, overlooked, or stuck. But God hasn't abandoned you. He's positioning you. You're not being buried, you're being planted. And when the time is right, the fruit of this season will be undeniable. People will see the elevation, but they won't know the isolation that came before it. They'll see the blessing, but not the breaking that made room for it. That's how God works. He elevates through the places no one else sees. So if you're in a season of isolation, don't run from it. Lean into it, because isolation is not the end of your story, it's the beginning of your elevation. There's a difference between loneliness and being alone. Being alone is a physical state. Loneliness is an emotional one. You can be surrounded by people and still feel empty, unseen, or disconnected. At the same time, you can be completely by yourself and feel full, whole, and at peace. The two are not the same, and until we understand the difference, we'll keep chasing people to fill spaces that only God can truly satisfy. Loneliness whispers that you're lacking something, that your value decreases when no one else is around to validate it. It fuels the lie that you're missing out, that everyone else has something you don't, and that your worth is tied to who's by your side. But being alone, when embraced with the right perspective, can be one of the most sacred and transformative seasons of your life. It's the space where you can finally hear yourself think, confront your internal noise, and learn what actually matters to you without the influence of others. God often does His most intimate work in seasons when you're alone, not because He wants to isolate you for pain, but because He wants to invite you into deeper presence with Him. When the world is quiet, when the conversations stop, and when you're left with just your thoughts and His voice, something powerful happens. You stop performing, you stop pretending, you start getting honest about your fears, your desires, your wounds, and your hope. That honesty is where healing begins. We often resist being alone because it confronts everything we haven't dealt with. It forces us to feel what we've avoided. But if you never learn to be whole alone, you'll end up dependent in every relationship. You'll look to people to fill you, fix you, and fulfill you. Roles they were never meant to play. People can compliment you, but they can't complete you. That's a job only God can do. Loneliness is real, and it's okay to acknowledge it, but don't let it define you. Don't let it rush you into connections that are more about convenience than calling. Don't let it convince you to settle for proximity over purpose. Learn to be alone and not be lonely. Learn to enjoy your own company, to develop your gifts, to discover your voice, and to deepen your relationship with God. Because the truth is, when you're whole alone, you're powerful together. You don't cling, you contribute, you don't depend, you add value. You don't fear losing someone because you know your identity isn't attached to their presence. That kind of strength comes only from solitude, not from constant connection. So don't fear being alone. Embrace it, use it, grow in it, let God meet you there. Because the goal isn't just to avoid loneliness, it's to be so deeply rooted in who you are and whose you are that being alone doesn't shake you, it strengthens you. God doesn't waste time, He builds through it. Every second, every season, every delay that feels like it's stretching beyond reason, He's using it. We often measure progress by what we can see. Open doors, relationship status, promotions, platforms, but God sees differently. While we're looking for movement, He's focused on maturity. While we're chasing outcomes, He's developing endurance. The time you think is being wasted is often the very ground God is using to grow something deep, lasting, and unshakable. It's frustrating, isn't it, watching others move forward, feeling like you're stuck, praying for change and getting silence, working, waiting, hoping, and seeing no visible result. But just because it feels slow doesn't mean it's stagnant. God is strategic. He's not in a rush like we are. He values process over performance. He doesn't need to prove anything to you. He's preparing something for you. Think about how long it takes to build something strong. Skyscrapers don't rise overnight. Foundations are poured deep, not wide. It's the hidden part of the structure that determines how high it can go. And that's what God is doing in you during these slow seasons. You're not being delayed, you're being developed. You're not being held back, you're being held together. Look at the stories in Scripture. Noah spent years building an ark before a drop of rain fell. Joseph endured betrayal, slavery, and prison before stepping into leadership. Even Jesus waited 30 years before starting His public ministry. None of that time was wasted. It was all preparation, refinement, shaping. If it took time for them, why wouldn't it take time for you? We live in a culture of instant gratification, but God doesn't operate on our clock. His timing isn't just perfect, it's purposeful. He knows what you'll need to carry what you're praying for. He knows what kind of strength your next chapter requires. And He won't give you what your character can't support. That's not punishment, that's protection. So while you think nothing is happening, God is building trust, patience, resilience. He's helping you see that your identity isn't tied to outcomes, that your faith isn't based on feelings, that your hope doesn't hinge on timelines. This is the construction zone of your soul, and God is the master builder. He sees the blueprint. He knows what's next. And He's not just building the blessing, He's building you. What you think is a waste of time might be the most valuable season of your life. One day you'll look back and realize that the version of you who came out of the waiting was stronger, wiser, more grounded, and more grateful than the version who walked in. Because God never wastes time. He multiplies it, He redeems it, He builds through it. You're becoming the person you're praying for. It might not look like it right now. You may feel stuck, unseen, or far from where you hoped you'd be by now. But God isn't just listening to your prayers. He's answering them through the process He's taking you through. You're asking for wisdom, strength, discernment, love, peace, and purpose. But those aren't things that just fall into your lap. They're grown. And God, in His perfect timing, is using every high and low, every delay and breakthrough, every unanswered question to shape you into the person you're praying to become. It's easy to want the outcome without the transformation, to want the platform without the process, to want the relationship, the promotion, the calling without the pruning that has to happen first. But God loves you too much to let you arrive unprepared. He hears your prayers, but He's also committed to your becoming. And that means He'll take you through seasons that don't make sense in the moment, but make you stronger in the long run. The habits you're building now, the battles you're fighting in private, the ways you're learning to depend on God when no one else sees, that's where your prayer is taking shape. You don't grow by skipping steps. You grow by walking through them with faith, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. That's when the internal work is happening. That's when the roots are going deep. That's when God is forming character that can carry the calling. You're not becoming that person all at once. It's day by day. One small act of obedience at a time. one choice to forgive, to stay grounded, to be disciplined, when it would be easier to coast. You may not feel it, but change is happening. Your mindset is shifting, your spirit is maturing, your heart is expanding, you're learning to trust God's voice over your own feelings, to find your identity in Him instead of in what you lack. Sometimes the answer to your prayer doesn't come wrapped in blessing, it comes wrapped in responsibility. You ask for peace, and God teaches you to silence the chaos in your mind. You ask for love, and He shows you how to love yourself first. You ask for purpose, and He leads you through seasons where you have to trust Him, even when you don't see the whole picture. That's the journey of becoming. It's not flashy, it's not fast, but it's always fruitful. You may not be where you want to be yet, but you're not who you used to be. Growth is happening in the gap. And when you finally step into the thing you've been praying for, you'll realize God wasn't just preparing it for you, He was preparing you for it. So keep going, keep praying, keep becoming, because the process is the answer, and who you're becoming is already a reflection of the prayer you once whispered in faith. Your singleness is not just about you, it's about impact. It's easy to think that this season is something to endure until the real part of life begins. But God doesn't waste seasons. He designs them. And your singleness, as much as any other season, is filled with divine purpose. It's not a placeholder or a punishment, it's a platform. A unique window of time that allows you to pour into things that might not be as accessible later. It's not just about what you're waiting for, it's about what you're meant to do while you wait. In singleness, your time, energy, and focus aren't divided. That's not a weakness, it's a superpower. You have a level of availability that can be used to serve, build, grow, and lead in ways that are harder to sustain in other seasons. It's a time to deepen your intimacy with God, develop your character, and discover the passions and gifts He placed inside you. You're not just existing, you're being equipped for something bigger than yourself. Too often we reduce singleness to a personal status, like it's only relevant to you. But what if your singleness isn't just about your fulfillment, but someone else's breakthrough? What if the freedom you have right now is meant to fuel something that changes lives? What if God is using this season to position you in places where your obedience, your voice, and your presence make a difference? Impact doesn't start when you enter a relationship. It starts the moment you realize your life carries weight with or without someone next to you. And right now, in this moment, your life can ripple into the lives of others. The conversations you're having, the people you're mentoring, the creativity you're investing in, the work you're doing, it matters. You're planting seeds today that will bear fruit long after this season is over. When you understand that your singleness is about more than just you, comparison loses its grip. You stop looking sideways at who's dating, who's married, and who seems further along. You realize that your path is different because your assignment is different. And your current season isn't lacking, it's loaded. Loaded with opportunity, loaded with influence, loaded with the potential to shape things that matter. You may not feel like it, but you're making impact right now. Every time you choose to show up, lead, serve, speak truth, or love people well, you're stepping into the purpose of this season. You're not on the sidelines. You're not waiting to be picked. You're already playing a key role in someone else's story, whether you see it or not. So don't despise this season. Don't rush past it. Embrace it, steward it, use it, because singleness is not just a chapter you get through, it's a calling you live out. And when you live it with intentionality, your impact won't be delayed until someday. It'll begin now. Because your singleness in God's hands is a strategy for influence that reaches far beyond you. Your singleness is not a pause or a problem. It's a powerful season designed by God for your growth, preparation, and impact. It's a time where God is shaping you into the person you're meant to be, building strength and character that will sustain you long after this chapter closes. You're not simply waiting for a relationship. You're walking in purpose, becoming whole, and making a difference right now. So embrace this season with faith, knowing that God's timing is perfect and His plans for you are greater than you can imagine. Your singleness is not just about you. It's about the incredible impact you're destined to make.